Let us think more about what is going on in these energy markets and what all of this means for Europe and the way that Europe manages a difficult environment for consumers over the coming months. Martin Wetzelaar joins us, the Chief Executive Officer of the Spanish refiner Cepsa. Martin, very nice to have you with us. Thanks for joining us here on the programme. We want to talk about what's going on in Spain, about how the Spanish environment is working in terms of your strategy and the diesel market and all those other good Spanish subjects. But I want to start with the bigger global picture, and that is what we've heard overnight from the Biden administration, that they might tap into the SPR in quite a substantial way, it seems. How much would you assume that these measures can help bring down the costs of energy for Europe?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna, and good morning. Thanks for having me on the program today. Indeed, a somewhat unexpected and large measure from the Biden administration. These strategic stock releases, to me, the most important thing is the political messaging that comes out of them in terms of the determination to do something about the oil price, rather than the exact physical effect on the market. Clearly, dripping this into the market into the coming months, or even taking 180 days to do it at 1 million barrels a day, is going to have a physical impact. But the oil prices, certainly in the medium term, are going to look at the fundamentals of demand and supply, and I think are still looking tight. There has been underinvestment for the last 5-6 years. We still have a lot of suppressed demand with the world still having to come out of COVID in many places. So I think this will help. It certainly will help in the near term, but in the medium term, balancing energy markets will require us all to produce more energy, which is also then leading to the question: what kind of energy should we invest in? Clearly, as Mark was saying, the shale industry will respond and will increase its investments and its output. But the other type of long-range type oil and gas projects take 4, 5, 6 years to come on stream. And then your alternative is to invest in biofuels, hydrogen, in sources of energy that not only give you more energy security, but also combat climate change. And I think that will be an important debate in days and weeks to come.
Good morning, Martin. And before we come to your quite aggressive hydrogen investment plans, I'm curious what you think specifically about the gas and diesel market in Europe. Not so much oil, but gas and diesel and Europe's energy crisis.
Yeah, these markets are clearly out of sync at the moment. What you see in the gas market is that it was already tight before the Ukraine conflict started, and since then it's become very, very volatile, and that will be a hard problem to solve going forward, because the gas market isn't global. As you know, gas prices in the US are a small percentage of gas price in Europe at the moment, and arbitrating it through LNG is only possible to the extent you have LNG plants running. Otherwise, it takes 5 years to build them. So I think the tension in the gas market is going to be with us for quite some time to come. And also what you see in diesel, Russia is a very important supplier of diesel and of diesel intermediates to Europe. And there's a lot of self-sanctioning going on. Companies at the moment, including our company, Cepsa, not buying Russian crude and Russian products. And this is leading to a very different balance in the diesel market in Europe. Higher prices, needing to attract diesel from other parts of the world. And again, as long as this conflict is alive, I would expect that market to be volatile and prices to be high.
Martin, can you see a situation where perhaps as we get into the winter, if the politics of all of this remains as it is right now, could you see a situation where rationing of energy products in Europe might become necessary?
I think that that will be a bad outcome for all citizens and for businesses in Europe, of course. I think it can be avoided by taking measures early, particularly on the gas side, and making sure that sanctions are well balanced in terms of what they do to the Western European situation and what they do to the Russian situation. So my sense is it can be avoided, but I'm sure there is a scenario out there where everything goes wrong, and you would end up in that space. But I think people will work hard, including politicians, to avoid that scenario, because that would clearly be to the detriment of everybody involved.
You've set out a very aggressive roadmap for building 100 new hydrogen filling stations in Spain and Portugal by 2030. Now, from what I understand, there's not the market for that right now, and obviously it's an 8-year horizon. Are you coordinating with major clients in this plan? And if so, which clients are you speaking to about it?
No, absolutely. And I think it is indeed more broadly a challenge with the energy transition investments. We announced yesterday a program to completely transform this company to become a leader in the energy transition and invest $8 billion in becoming a leader in e-mobility, indeed in hydrogen, and I'll come back to that, but also in sustainable aviation fuel and in biofuels. And in all these markets, the future demand is still tentative. Not everybody has bought an electric car yet. Not every trucking company has bought their hydrogen trucks yet. Yet somebody has to start. And we do believe that by making a pretty aggressive bet on this now, we can actually create that market. Of course, it would be irresponsible to do so without having mature conversations with customers on the aviation side when it comes to sustainable aviation fuel, but also indeed with users, some of our long-standing clients who currently use diesel for their trucking in Spain and throughout Europe, who are very, very keen to move to hydrogen. So yes, we have pretty mature discussions with customers, but we will have to invest ahead of that market in order to be early.
Okay, and in terms of that strategy and the big rethink that you're having, you've just referenced there, you've talked about investing 7 to 8 billion through to 2030. But can we have a bit more detail on what exactly you're going to be investing in? How much is that going to be hydrogen? How much serving the aviation sector? Where does that money go, Martin?
Yeah, the vast majority of that money goes into the e-mobility, hydrogen, and biofuels / sustainable aviation fuel sectors. And the last two are the biggest ones. E-mobility, of course, is about building a network of chargers and sites, and there's only so much money you can spend on it. Hydrogen and biofuels will be the major recipients of that. The exact balance will depend a little bit on how that market plays out. We see regulation pushing aviation customers into sustainable aviation fuel, and we see customers demanding it as well, and similarly on hydrogen. But I would say the regulatory environment for both is still developing. So to give you an exact mix will be hard because it will depend a bit on customer demand. But in both cases, we have decided that we would rather take the risk of being too early than the risk of being too late. So we will invest ahead of the market. But of course, depending on which of these markets goes fastest, we will adjust our investment plans accordingly. But we are definitely aiming to spend the vast majority of that money on building those leadership positions in sustainable aviation fuel, green hydrogen, and e-mobility.
Producing hydrogen requires complex and expensive electrolyzers, something that you have experience of from your time at Shell. How is this going to work at Cepsa? Who's going to provide those for you?
Yeah, it requires, very right, Mark, and it requires one more thing, which is of course green electrons, solar and wind. I would say when it comes to solar and wind, we are extremely well placed in Europe, because in the south of Spain, which is where our asset footprint is, the sun and wind are more intense and more available than almost anywhere else. So our starting point is very strong because we get very cheap green electrons, and then indeed you need to build a hydrogen electrolysis infrastructure. There's a number of providers in the market, some of them with fairly classical solutions, some of them with also quite novel solutions. And we will be experimenting with both. We will be building both types because we do believe that innovation is required to really take the cost of green hydrogen down to where we believe it needs to be, which is in the area of 2 euros per kilogram to really compete with diesel and with other alternatives for our customers. That's not where that market is today. We can see through a cost curve, both on the novel and on the existing technologies, to get there, particularly with the starting point that we have on very green, cheap and green electrons in the south of Spain.
Martin, thank you so much for your time. Martin Betzler, the CEO of Cepsa, thank you very much for joining us.